All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the SelfActualize Podcast, where we bring you world-class coaches sharing insights on the subjects that they're absolute experts in. So I'm Anmol. I'm your host. I'm joined today by my good friend and co-host, Amit Bakshi. Amit is the founder and CEO of SelfActualize.ai, which is the leader in AI-powered coaching. So hey, Amit, how are you today?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. All right. So we're excited. Today, we're thrilled to have Diana Stepner with us. So Diana is a product management and leadership coach with over 20 years of experience at top companies like Pearson, Kayak, and Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, just to name a few. Diana is known for her empathy, for her authenticity, and her grit, empowering product managers and tech leaders alike to grow professionally while enhancing their personal well-being. Diana is also the founder of Diana Stepner Coaching and Advising, where she focuses on creating an inspiring space where her clients can overcome challenges, stretch beyond their comfort zones, and realize their full potential. Her passion for continuous learning and her ability to motivate others is what makes her stand out in the coaching world. So, Deanna, we're thrilled to have you today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Excited to talk to you both. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, likewise. All right. So let's get into it. So, Deanna, why don't we start? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your own personal journey. Obviously, you've had a long career in product leadership. You've held several VP of product and head of product roles in some of the companies that we mentioned and many others. Then in late 2022, right, you made a shift and you transitioned into coaching full time and you started your own practice. So tell us a little bit about that history and that journey. What led you to make that shift, and how did that journey into coaching begin, and what made it motivated you to do that?
Yeah, so I've been in product leadership for over 20 years, led global product teams, and I think, during the pandemic, like everybody else, kind of reevaluating what I wanted to
Yeah.
do. I worked for a mental health and wellness company and really focused on helping the team learn and bring together their expertise, their insight, and essentially created more of a learning coaching culture. And that really resonated with the team. We doubled in size, not because of that, but it enabled the connections to remain and the web of knowledge to bring in the whole product team and the design team, which I both oversaw, and enabled all of us to have a very cohesive view, a very connected view, and to move forward in an aligned manner. And then in 2023, I joined the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. And it was a great learning experience as well to understand how to apply a coaching mindset and a coaching approach to a different type of leadership environment, a different type of, product environment, because it was or is a nonprofit. And those two experiences led me to really dive into what I love, which is coaching and helping individuals, as you said, product managers, product leaders really excel. And so I'd been coaching on the side as a side hustle and made the pivot to be able to go into that full time just based on the experiences that I had and seeing the impact and the effectiveness of coaching, helping people, be even better than they thought they could be, overcome difficult situations, as well as gain confidence and influence in their craft.
Okay, and then follow-on question to that. You've had the 20 years of experience as a people leader and a product leader with the VP and head of product roles. Did you get a chance, you think, in that corporate environment to be a coach for your teams when you were in those roles? And the reason why I ask is I was a salesperson and an individual contributor for about 10 years, and then I made the jump into sales leadership back in 2017, first line leadership, and then more recently, like head of sales sort of roles. And then in my experience being a leader and leading sales teams, the ones who are successful really make that leap into coaching, where you're not necessarily a manager, but you're a leader and a coach. You're coaching your people to get better. And that's really what kind of differentiates. So did you feel like you had a chance to do that in some of those product roles that you had at those companies?
I did. And I think it's because that's innately me.
Hmm.
I love learning. I love being able to help others gain insight and knowledge. I help people grow. That is just how I'm wired. And so I did. And it was a conscious decision to be able to apply coaching as part of my leadership style and my leadership approach. So I can't say that it's something that all leaders do, but I do believe it's something that all leaders should do. And for me, it's something that I did consciously because I wanted to enable, empower the individuals who worked for me and around me to be able to continue to grow both professionally and personally.
So your tagline in your business and your consider leadership and coaching practice is people first leadership. With the whole idea being, okay, in product roles, the focus is often on putting the customer first or developing the product for the customer, but then who puts the product team first? And then to your point, as a leader, and especially as a product leader, your team really becomes your priority. So it's that team first. So could you expand on that approach a little bit? Your approach to helping these product leaders really prioritize their teams. How do you coach these leaders to do that effectively as far as putting their teams first? And even though the product or the customer is important, how do you coach them to put their team first and achieve that balance?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think instinctively a lot of people put themselves first. And that is the way that people have found the most success. And I understand that and I appreciate that. The way that I've always approached leadership is if you help the people around you, the team that you're leading, be better, be the best that they can be, push limits, that actually makes the leader stronger and then makes the leader shine brighter too. So my people first leadership is the principle that if you help and grow and coach the individuals who work for you to improve their craft, to increase their confidence, to increase their influence, they will be more effective and more successful. And then as a consequence, so will you. And so I think of it like an ecosystem model. If your team is successful, they then fuel your success, which then gives you more ability as the leader to empower your team more. And if you continue to coach them, they will become stronger, and so will you. So it's an ecosystem that's fueled through coaching and putting your people first.
Great. Diana, I'd love to hear, do you have any favorite coaching moments through the years? Can you share a story of a transformation that you're particularly proud of, and how did you enable that change?
Yeah, I'll aggregate some people together because, with coaching, obviously it's all anonymous. But there's a couple of situations where I've helped senior product people be able to influence their leaders and be able to advance in their careers. And I've done that by helping them understand how to work more effectively with stakeholders, help them work more effectively with cross-functional leaders, and also help them work more effectively with those with influence. Because often what happens in an organization when you're up for a promotion or your manager is just doing a 360, you have to have had interactions with those individuals who are giving feedback, and you want those interactions to go well for the feedback to be positive. And so through my coaching, I've helped people be more proactive. I've helped them think more broadly, and I've helped them work more effectively with individuals who can influence their trajectory, but also enable them to develop skills, increase their confidence that they can then call upon in similar situations in the future. Coaching is not transactional. I like to think of it as a relationship. And so what you're doing is building a toolkit with your client to be able to give them something to call upon again and again when they interact with stakeholders or leaders or others.
And how do you do that? So I think that's really important as far as that internal networking and building alliances with people you don't necessarily work with on a day-to-day basis, whether those are internal mentors or other people that you need alliances with in order to get good 360 reviews and potentially get promoted or just influence in your organization, right? And now, obviously, in the old days, it was a little bit easier prior to COVID because you're in an office and you're bumping into people and it's easy to kind of go out to lunch or see people in meetings. But obviously, we live in the virtual world now where you can access people in different geographies, but then it may be a little bit awkward asking someone for a Zoom call that you don't necessarily, when you're not necessarily working on the same project together, right? So how do you coach people to kind of build that influence with people not in their immediate circle in work, given what you were talking about?
Yeah, I think it's a funny one for me because I've been remote since 2014. And even before that, I was leading teams around the world. So it was very rare that I was in the same place as all the people I worked with or needed to influence. And what that's enabled me to do and to see is how to interact with people who you're not going to meet over the water cooler or at lunch. You have to be more thoughtful. You do have to be more proactive in setting aside that time to interact with someone. And so it depends on the person that I coach, but with some individuals, it's creating a calendar of the individuals that you want to speak with and identifying topics that you're going to discuss with them, and then putting that calendar into motion. In other situations, it's thinking how you would react to a situation. Oftentimes, we assume how individuals are going to react to a message or to a pitch or to something we're trying to influence them to do. When we reverse that, if we say that person was coming to us with a situation, when we think about how we would react, that often makes us better prepared for how the individual we're talking to could react. So it's helping give people frameworks and systems to call upon so that they can develop those relationships, but also be prepared to have those conversations in a way that is effective and treats the individuals as humans. So even though we may not be in the office, we still like icebreakers. We still like getting to know each other. We still like having that chat.
The same rules apply,
The
right?
same rules apply, but in the same way, some people don't like small talk. And you need to suss those people out just as you would in a virtual environment as well as a face-to-face environment. So exactly as you said, it is very similar. We just feel that it's not. But when you take a step back and look at the characteristics, we're interacting with humans. So similar principles do apply. You just need to be, I think, more thoughtful and more proactive around it.
Yeah, I think what you said is very powerful. The whole idea of you got to be intentional about it and proactive. Because in the past, if you're in the office, it's going to happen more organically, right?
Right.
Unless you're holed up in your office, you're a cube, and you're not going to walk around or talk to anybody. You're going to meet people, you're going to go out to lunch, like those connections are going to happen. But in the virtual world, though, they're not going to happen. I mean, if you're just sitting here in your home office, right, you got to be more intentional, more proactive. You got to put yourself out there. And it's the first thing that kind of falls off the calendar. So it's almost like anything else, right? Put it on your to-do list, put it on your calendar, be intentional about, hey, I'm going to reach out to these 5 people this week. Now, this next week, I'm going to reach out to these additional 5 people. So it's just planning it into your day, almost just like anything else.
Yeah. And I do think with some people in the go to office mode, they need to do that too.
Mhm.
Because now a lot of the companies, even though they've gone back to the office, there's still people remote. So, you go to the office and you see a whole bunch of people just sitting in conference rooms talking
Yeah.
to someone on Zoom. So I still think that intention needs to be there now, given the environment that we're in, even if you're going to the office, again, to connect with those people who aren't there.
Yeah, Amit and I laugh about that all the time. It's like our day to day is sitting at home on Zoom calls back to back to back. But then we were going into the office, it was the same thing. We drive 50 minutes to the office and we're sitting in a conference room with Zoom calls back to back.
Yep.
So rules
Yep.
apply in both places. So tell us a little bit about how coaching has impacted you personally. I mean, obviously, Amit and I are big fans of coaching. We've gotten tremendous benefit from connecting with coaches such as yourself, especially the last 5 or 6 years. We're both training to become coaches ourselves. So tell us about a coach or a mentor or a leader or a manager, um, or even like a book or a podcast that was influenced you. Like, what did you learn from that experience? And was there somebody in the past that helped shape you and developed your coaching style and motivated you to get into coaching on your own?
Yeah, I think what really resonated with me when I went through my coaching training is the things that I did just instinctively were coaching practices. And what I mean is, I've always been someone who listens. And in coaching, there's active listening. You want to listen. You want to be able to internalize what the person's saying. You want to be able to reframe it back. You want to be able to then build on it. Those were things that I'd done, but I didn't realize there was, a phrase, active listening. And maybe that's just my own lack of, I don't know, investigation. But what I really loved about coaching and what I really loved about what I've learned and the people that I connected with is that thoughtfulness, that desire to really understand what makes a human tick, whether it be through, active listening or appreciative inquiry or emotional intelligence. It's really putting the human first and understanding them, and then being able to work effectively with that person in a way that helps them grow and helps them better realize how much potential they have, as well as how they can work more effectively with others. So it put frameworks, it put systems, it put terms, it put more confidence in me, just because of I now felt grounded in coaching, in a role, in a job that really just connects and resonates with my personality, just with the way that I'd always led teams and worked.
So yeah, along those same lines, right? You mentioned the coactive coaching and some of the principles in there, like active listening. So we're big readers on this podcast, right? As part of this, we also have our book review series. So Amit and I are both big readers. So we're reading all the time on coaching, but also just leadership and more general personal development. So is there a book that has really influenced you? I mean, you didn't mention coactive coaching, but is there a book? It doesn't have to necessarily be about coaching. It could be about leadership or personal development, but is there a book from your past that has really made an impact on you and your coaching style?
So I actually didn't go through coactive. I went through the College of Executive Coaching. And yes, there were facets of the coactive model that we learned, but we learned about other methodologies and approaches too. Coaching, like any type of discipline, there are a lot of different approaches. And I like coactive, definitely. I read the book as well and think it's amazing. But the program I went through was the College of Executive Coaching. And the books that I've read have been around transformation. So they really resonated with me because of the time that we're in right now. We need to be able to manage, the transitions that are happening, whether it be in technology or just the world around us. So one of the books that I really liked was Transitions, Making Sense of Life's Changes. It's by William and Susan Bridges. And it just talked about the transitions that we go through life. And I think that's really effective because a lot of times we get to this point where there's anxiety built out because we're getting to a milestone in life that we haven't experienced before. And so just helping to understand how we can navigate those transitions, I think are really, really important. These other book along those same lines is The Practice of Adaptive Leadership. And again, I think that's extremely important because now, again, the world around us is changing so rapidly. we can't go in with a fixed mindset. We really need to go in with a growth mindset or an adaptive leadership style to be able to work effectively with our colleagues, with our stakeholders, with our customers, etc. And that book is by Ronald Heifetz and a couple of other people too. But I really, really like that. Those two books stood out for me. I mean, obviously, same as you guys, I read a lot, but those just stand out given, what the world is experiencing right now.
Yeah, I mean, transitions, at least for me personally, is very, very top of mind, especially these last few years, because of two transitions. First of all, it was the COVID and the pandemic and everything that kind of came along with that, right? Both professionally and personally. Personally, I'm still kind of adjusting to some of those changes. So that's one transition. And the second transition that happened at the same time for me, well, actually, there's three. The second transition that happened at the same time for me was entering that middle age, which is a big transition also. And, a lot's been written about the happiness curve, and it's a U shape, and it kind of dips a little bit in that middle age time. People talk about the midlife crisis or whatever, and then it kind of comes back up later on. I don't know. But so that's the second transition for me that I'm kind of working towards. And then the third transition, and all three of these kind of happen at the same time, was the moving away from kind of big established corporate tech companies. I got kind of tired of the big corporate thing after 20 years. And then over the last few years, I've been going more in the entrepreneurial, the startup world, which is, another big transition. So it's kind of those three things happen at exactly the same time. So I think that's definitely an interesting book that I'll have to go pick up. So maybe I can learn some stuff from that.
Definitely.
Yeah, but Anmol, you're like 25 years old. I don't know what you're talking about, man.
Right, right. Sorry, I meant
Aren't we
quarter
all?
life. I meant quarter life crisis. My bad.
Yeah.
So Diana, I have a personal question. I figured this is such a great opportunity for me to be talking to a product management coach. I'm going to ask you a question that I might ask you during a session, right? So, as founder and CEO of a startup, I need to be a product person. Um, and for me, product management just requires deep, focused, uninterrupted thinking. But as my day progresses, I'm just literally jumping from one thing to another thing to another thing. I'm like frazzled, right? And I tend to like knock out easier cognitive load. Like I treat my day like more like a to-do list. And the deeper thinking always gets pushed, right? I know that I should be looking at metrics and making data-driven decisions, but I feel like that thinking kind of gets postponed in favor of just like the quick, let me knock this out, let me knock this out. Do you have any tips for someone like me?
Yeah, I think there's so much overlap between product and coaching. And so, the first thing that comes to mind is like the Eisenhower matrix, which is, one of those tools that product managers use, and you look at effort versus impact. And so the thing that I would recommend is to look at the items on your to-do list and what are the items that can have the most impact. And then you look at the effort associated with them. Because it sounds like, you want to check those things off your to-do list, but some of those items may not have the desired impact or the necessary impact. And so by looking at where you can put in maybe a little bit more effort, but get more of a return, that will allow you to move ahead. And so with some folks, you need to understand how they work. And like you're describing, you seem to like that structure to be able to cross things off of your list. But it may be then that you need to break down some of those bigger effort tasks to be able to have those celebration moments along the way. But when you do all of those smaller steps, the impact is actually bigger. And so by identifying the way that you like to work, you can typically break down, or you could look at differently the way that you need to get things done and interpret or incorporate the method that works best for you. And so again, that to do implies that you like those celebrations more frequently. So it may be breaking down some of those bigger tasks to smaller pieces, celebrating them along the way. As you get them to all bring together, you'll have that larger impact.
Wow, that's a really good way to think about it. Yeah, it's kind of like Stephen Covey's four quadrants, right? And I'm sort of living in like one and three, but maybe I can trick myself by breaking a two into a bunch of ones, right? Like that would be more gratifying. And then the other kind of follow-up question to that is I'm actually an ENTP, like Myers-Briggs type. Do you think that that might contribute to me not being a deep thinker? I've been kind of like coached in the past that maybe I should surround myself with J's, right? Because I would rather just jump from idea to idea and rather than like actually do real work, for example.
Yeah, I think yeah, Chip Connolly has this phrase where it's like your personality is kind of set, and there are obviously things we do to adapt. Your IQ is kind of set, but obviously we can grow, we can learn, and then your transitional quotient is the one that we can flex, we can change. And so, like we were talking about before, and like you just said, I think there's ways that you can surround yourself with people who complement you, and that means they're different than you. And so, for example, when you want to think about something more broadly, you can probably frame the question really well and then engage with people who, based on their personality, their type, etc., they tend to dive deeper, but you give them that fuel to start and then they run with it. And that allows you to benefit from the back and forth with them by starting the conversation, but you actually don't need to do all the heavy lifting yourself. And so that would be one recommendation I would have. Wrapped in that is something that I think is very powerful for everyone. I think in technology, just the way we're raised, oftentimes we don't ask for help. And that doesn't mean, you always need to say, hey, I need help. But by thinking of a way that you can call in other expertise through framing a question or by putting forward a challenge or by welcoming a debate, you can bring in those other people who have deeper thinking and complement you. Ideally, you would just say, I need help with this. But if you don't feel that's right for you, there are different ways that you can do it that then leverage your personality type, but also call upon the superpowers of the others.
Got it. Is there a Myers-Briggs type that is like the ideal product person?
I would love to say yes, but I honestly don't think so because there's so many different companies and so many different types of products that are created. I think it more is in line to the environment of the organization than it is to the role. And, enterprise companies work very differently than startups. Manufacturing companies work very differently than a digital company that was marketplace. So I think there's a product fit for every type of personality, but you need to think about the culture of the organization and the way that they approach product.
Got it. So shifting gears, I'm super curious, like, is there a product that's recently delighted you? I'm sure you're always looking for cool products.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Every newsletter. I think those guys are amazing. And in their incubator, they have two products that I really, really love. One is called Spiral, and Spiral just you give it an input of something you really like, you then give it your version, and then it applies that input towards your version and comes up with something snappy. It could be a headline, it could be, some quippy phrases that you put at the top of a LinkedIn, but it allows you to really refine and improve those admin tasks, that headline, that those little lines at the start of a post and really make them snappier. So I really love that one. And then Lex.page, I think is an amazing writing tool. To me, it's just really helps when I'm with my blog posts. It helps me, with grammar. It helps me with just making things more concise. So those are the two products that just have wowed me recently.
Awesome.
So Diana, you've been a part of SelfActualize.ai from the start. So SelfActualize is obviously the startup that Amit has founded. He's the CEO of it, basically creating an AI version, right, of coaches like you, Diana, so that your fans, your clients can interact with you. You can grow your client base and then also hopefully provide a better service to your clients. So just curious, what inspired you to get involved? I mean, you've been one of SelfActualize's foundational coaches. You've been involved from the beginning. So just what motivated you to get involved with it? What's your experience been like? And just in general, the AI version of Diana, how do you see that kind of helping you personally with your coaching practice, either getting new clients or being more impactful to your existing clients?
Yeah, for me, it was the bringing together of coaching and product and AI. And that to me was a trifecta that I wanted to explore. AI is here. It's not going
Yeah.
away. And so I wanted to get a better understanding of what it meant, in the context of coaching. And I look at it from a product lens. And so how can it be useful? How can, it develop in a way that, serves my clients more effectively over time, as well as, helps me too. And so that's why I wanted to get involved, because I really like the thoughtfulness. I really like the approach. I
Mhm.
love, coming at it from the coaching experience side, and that's what really sold me on wanting to get involved. I love the principles of being able to call upon, my knowledge, my client's insight anytime, anywhere. I think that's extremely valuable, especially in the technology space where everything's moving so quickly, 24 hours a day. And so if there's a question that you just want to bat around, you can use the AI version of Diana to do that. And I think that's really, really helpful. The other piece around it is it gives me more insight into the areas that my clients want to explore, even when they're not with me. And so that helps me build up insight into them. It helps me better coach them, and it helps me be a better partner to them. So I like the benefits that it gives, me being available to my clients, but also me having more insight into my clients as well. And I do think over time, it's going to be an opportunity for individuals to try out coaching with Diana and get an experience of what it's like and see if we might be a fit. So I really like that being a low friction way for people to experiment and try out coaching.
Well, Diana, this has been terrific. We've really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot. Like for one, I got to go check out that book, Transitions, right? I wrote that down. I'm going to do that right after this. But, where can people learn more about you? Obviously, you've got a lot of content out there. You've got your blogs, you've got videos, you've got your coaching practice. If I was interested in interacting with your content or getting coaching from you personally, how can people learn more about you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm Diana Stepner on LinkedIn. I think there are only three of us, so you can probably figure out me.
33%. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I also, as you said, I write a blog. So I'm dianastepner.substack.com, and that's a great way to find more about me, follow my writings. So LinkedIn and then the Substack. Those would be the two I'd recommend. And then, yeah, if you forget both of those, I'm at dianastepner.com.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. So to get AI coaching from Diana on these topics and others, you can visit selfactualize.ai and sign up for the virtual Diana experience for free. So we encourage you to do that. We encourage you to check out all of Diana's materials. Check her out on LinkedIn and her coaching practice. So thanks again for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next time for another episode of the Self-Actualize Podcast. All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.